Hello everybody, Tommy Joe Moore here, and the guys at Naval and Military Press have been very kind enough to send me some copies of some fantastic books, which I am very pleased to review. So I've got 3 to share with you today, all of which are very cool. So, first of which is Hand-to-Hand Combat by Francois D'Alescu. Now this is a fantastic little tome. Now this is predominantly military in origin, and you can find some really great footage of Mr. D'Alescu online. Really kind of rough and ready combat judo, boxing, stick fighting, using the garrote. Absolutely fantastic stuff, and this is the manual guide for it. It's got really beautiful, well laid out illustrations here, so unlikely for its time, it's actually very clear in what it wants you to do in a step-by-step breakdown. And as you can imagine, there's things from all sorts of gymnastic tumbles and rolls and all that kind of business. Basic throws, hip throws, shoulder throws, striking surfaces. And then it kind of breaks down into counters for habitual acts of violence. So counters for a low tackle attack, for example. Again, interesting for its time. How to kick and how to defend against kicks. So it's a really beautiful volume. It's got silencing sentries. So it's a good mixture of face-to-face combatives, a little bit of military fitness, military training, and also kind of sentry removal, some of your more dark arts kind of stuff. There's an entire lesson on strangles here. What I really like is that it's broken down pedagogically. And what I mean by that is it breaks down what we're doing in a series of lessons. So we've got lessons 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we've got 6 periods. We understand what we're learning. So in the 6th period, at the culmination of it, you're looking at counters to knife attacks. At the very start, we're just looking at being limber and understanding our bodies and basic striking, basic falling. So it's a really good progression. So as you can see, this would be where taking the serviceman through the levels, through very basics, through to some rather advanced stuff and how it can be taught. And this guide is fantastic because it is a train the trainer's guide, in that it doesn't assume you know anything, so it breaks everything down for you step by step, which is again very rare for its time. If you think about the Fairbairn books, it's very much this is the technique, this is the chin jab, and that's it. How you get there is in a very brief description. What's brilliant about this work is that everything has counters, everything is a response to a habitual act of violence, and everything's scaled and phased. So as you move through the lessons, things are bolted on. So this is Hand-to-Hand Combat, available from Naval and Military Press. We've then got this giant bad boy here. So again, this is an amphibious scouts book. So some parity, some similarity to this for US servicemen. Now, this is quite interesting because it contains both photography and it contains some rather impressive, if I can find them, rather impressive and strange artwork. Now, your guess is as good as mine as to what's really going on there, but it's quite fun. So they've got some interesting kind of diagrams, attack charts of the human body, nice weaknesses of its time. As you can see, so far so good. Working with a rifle, so using a rifle, preventing a rifle being taken off you, and taking a rifle off others. I would say that this is rather more military orientated in, that's a stupid thing to say. Compared to a Fairbairn manual, which starts unarmed and moves into armed, this book very early on moves into things that you're much more likely to face as a soldier in these times, which is defences against weapons, defences against arrests, getting rifles off people, maintaining your own rifle. So it starts with the things that are most likely to occur, defences against weapons, and then moves into some of the lesser likely stuff, such as the unarmed restraint, striking, grappling, all that sort of stuff. And it moves through into responses to certain stimuli, so against front chokes, side chokes, punches, tackles, all of the things that regularly occur time and time again. But I'd say unique for this book is A, it's very large, which makes everything very clear. It has a mixture of illustration and very well shot images. And I have to say that the descriptions are also rather good. They go into really good detail. So you can see in this the great mix and synthesis of wrestling, of boxing, of Ju Jitsu, all distilled with a lot more of a military angle to it, in that it focuses on the important stuff first. for your average serviceman. Now, if you think about Fairburn material, a lot of that is being trained by the SOE. So sometimes you may not have access to a weapon, whereas these guys nearly always have access to some kind of weapon, and that's why it has that weapon first orientation. So it's a rather good book, and I like at the end, we've all in our training found ourselves either that person flying over or that person praying that the flying person goes past you without breaking a couple of your ribs. So we've all been there, but this is a fantastic book, a preparation manual for the amphibious scouts. And then the final and my favourite of the lot is this, Police Ju Jitsu by Kato Futasaki and Professor Butch. What brilliant names, mostly fake names obviously, but a fantastic book. So this Police Ju Jitsu book has really, really beautiful illustrations. I really love the kind of styling of this. You know, it's on the front, as taught to police, Marines, G-men, soldiers, and members of the US Coast Guard. So it's a police jiu-jitsu guide, but it's establishing its credentials in wider aspects of combatives in the military. And I quite like that some of these are very police orientated. As you can see here, you see the police officer, and they're moving through locks and holds and restraints as a police officer would. But we also have things like women's self-defense, you know, jamming fingers into eyes, into throats. So there's some of that in there, which is fantastic. We also see a focus on what non-police officers, general normal civilians, can be doing to defend themselves against violence. So whilst it is a police jiu-jitsu book, it's got a great mix of material for police officers themselves, doing what they do best, arresting people, and civilians, both male and female, defending themselves. What's also interesting is that if you look at the pedagogy or you know, where this material comes from, it starts off quite jiu-jitsu-y, and at the end, it starts to move into a more of a wrestling base. So we start to see how, in this instance, Professor Butch is showcasing how some of the wrestling holds, wrestling tackles, wrestling restraints can really work for you. So we're seeing, you can even see it in the fashion. When we're in the dirtier jiu-jitsu, we're in street clothes. Yeah, you can see the kind of judo jiu-jitsu emphasis there. And when we're looking at the wrestling and grappling, we can see changes in the clothing of people. So it's a really good showcase of East meets West, wrestling meets jiu-jitsu meets street fighting through the lens of police officers and what they've found to be effective. So this is just a phenomenal, phenomenal guide. If you get any of the three, this is my favourite, but they are all fantastic. They're all available through Navy and Military Press. You can find them on their website. But just to recap, we've got police jiu-jitsu here. We've got hand-to-hand combat here. And we've got a secondary hand-to-hand combat here. All three of them are utterly marvellous. A brilliant addition to any of your World War II combatives library. So go out and get them and enjoy them. And most importantly, go out there and practice them. Reading them's fun. Doing them is even better. So go out there, grab some people, throw them around and have a great time. Cheers.